Originally, I was planning to review a game called Power Shovel, a unique game where you play as a constructor excavator performing multiple tasks, but unfortunately, I find the game to be very frustrating. Despite the controls being good, I just couldn't get myself to get a hang of it, and eventually I rage quit, and to avoid just writing a negative review on this game, I decided to scrap it. And that got me thinking. I want to try something else that I never tried before. I want to try to talk about multiple games in one single video, considering this is the final video for the week of the month of Taito-Ber. And now I think I know what I'm gonna do. In between 2005 and 2006, Taito released Taito Legends 1 and Taito Legends 2, a collection of arcade games that were packed into one single disc released on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. I'm gonna stick with PlayStation 2. So without further ado, I think let's get into it right now. First up is Battle Shark. World War has shifted to the ocean and you control a submarine to stop it by yourself. Your primary weapon is the torpedo, but be careful as it takes a while to recharge and you could get seriously in trouble when you run out of them in a dire situation. Not only you have to destroy the enemy fleet, but also have to fend off the enemy target that were targeted towards you. You could get a panic attack if you don't know what you're doing. With the constant alarm keep ringing in the background, it makes things even worse. The graphic itself is pretty good and really submerge yourself within the ocean as well. Overall, a challenging game yet rewarding when dive deeper into the game. Bubble Bobble. I talked about this in my previous video when I compared this along with Bubble Symphony, with the latter being superior game. TLDR, while the beginning is fun as you crawl down the cave of monster, later on the game starts using different gimmick that makes the game hard for new player. It's by no means a bad game, don't get me wrong, but the later level could scare the players away without any guide. But hey, the music is good. Colony 7. It's more of a mixture between Missile Command and Space Invaders. You have to protect the base below the defense line, or you try to destroy the enemy with 2 cannons. My problem is that the enemy came in too quickly, and by the time you aim at them, they either end up destroying your cannon or the base itself, which is very annoying. For the most part, you will be dealing with the same type of squadron for every single wave. Not a bad game, just boring and tedious. Continental Circus. A Formula 1-ish game where you drive a race car and try to finish in the given position to qualify for the next round. The car controls well for the most part, certainly behave like what an actual F1 car would do, as if you hit someone, you damage the car and you have to enter the pit stop to repair it. If you crash, then you probably die. Remember, this is the 80s. Safety precaution is not where they are like nowadays, and F1 is a dangerous sport. If you love F1, then you will love this game. The Electric Yo-Yo. I wish I owned a yo-yo. Either way, you use the yo-yo to clear the section full of items while at the same time avoiding the obstacles. One fascinating thing is that whenever the electric current touches one of the items, it becomes a power-up that makes you invisible momentarily. But still, once you play once, you don't want to return it anyway. Elevator Action. You are a spy and you have to use elevator to reach each floor to collect data from each room. You can shoot, duck, use the environment to your advantage, and that's about it. Everyone knows how it functions and I don't have to talk too much about it. Exisas. Exis. Oh no, don't say, do not say, no! It's a quality shmup from 1987. Enemy swoops in from the background to fight you, and it's kinda immersive. The audio/graphics sound and look pretty good for its time. There are different power-ups to pick up, including the one where you can change back and forth between the mech or a plane, which is pretty cool. I could see myself coming back to try to get a 1 credit clear on this game, maybe in the future. But for now, Gladiator. As the name suggests, you play as a gladiator where you try to defeat your rival by knocking off every pieces of armor on your body. Sounds easy? No, not really. Before you even get to them, you gotta fend off tons of projectiles thrown at you. One hit means 1 damage to your armor that will make your journey much harder as you are much more vulnerable at the moment. Let's not forget that the fact the boss themselves are f***ing brutal. I swear, every time I got a chance, the boss ends up putting up some unpredictable movement that made me lose entirely. It's not an easy game in the slightest, and everyone could agree with that fact. Great Swordsman. The concept is almost the same as Gladiator, but this time the game is easier. Try to hit the opposing rival with your sword before they hit yours. The game requires different strategy like waiting or making dummy moves to trap the rival. Every controls are important so that you can decide where to hit and you are allowed to hit anywhere. Because the judges are fair and never mind. Overall, a really good game if you want to get into fencing. Jungle Hunt. In a quest to save your girlfriend, you're gonna have to swing between trees, swim across the ocean, and finally jump across boulders. And once you do them, repeat the same process over and over again. While I enjoy this short adventure, the novelty wears out rather quickly. Some of the sections also inspire other games in the future like Circus Charlie and Adventure Island, in my opinion. A really fun pickup and play, but hard to return. The New Zealand Story. A bunch of Kiwi got kidnapped by this walrus, and now it's up to you to rescue your homies. Hey, do me a favor. Go ask Josh or any other Kiwi on the internet whether or not this actually happens in New Zealand. Because if it's real, then I might wanna migrate there in 5 years' time. One of the wildest games I ever played, and it's f***ing fun as hell. It's essentially a platformer where you shoot enemy with your arrow. Lots of stuff happening, and you try to make it till the end unscathed. I swear, everything is just bizarre. And if you're not careful, then you get a free ticket to the heaven. Wow, what an experience! Overall, New Zealand Story is a wild country full of surprises, and I urge you all to go there. The Ninja Kids. So apparently some maniac decided to resurrect the devil. Yes, the devil himself. And now it's up to 4 kids that will try to save the world. What? Excuse me, what? What? What the fuck is this? Oh my. What is this? Anyway, the gameplay is like your usual beat 'em up. Go through each levels, fight enemies, and beat the bosses. But I still can't get over the fact that Taito managed to came up with this sort of game, and gotta give credit, and I gotta give credit to the developer who that came up with this during the meeting. Whoever made this, you are high enough to make this project, and because of that, you earn my respect. Good one, Taito. Good one. Operation Wolf. The first out of the 3 light gun game on the desk. However, I want to tell you something. This game does not support gun con at all, so it doesn't matter if you're using CRT or LED television, light gun does not work with this game, and you have to rely on controller, which really isn't that fun. Anyway, you play as a John Rambo wannabe, infiltrating the enemy base to rescue hostages. While you do that, you also have to deal with the constant flashing, which is annoying. Not to mention the staggering amount of enemies that literally appear on the screen does not give you enough time to breathe. Unless your middle name is John Rainbow, I doubt you can even survive the first stage. Operation Thunderbolt, a better game compared to Wolf. No more flashes and the game is somewhat easier. Not only you will be traveling from right to left, but also in first person, which is pretty cool. The game will get harder later on, but for starters, it's much more approachable unlike the first game. Phoenix. Title answer to Galaxian, but much worse. The sound is the worst aspect of the game and could seriously throw you off. If you hate your ears, then by all means, play this. Plotting. Also known as Flippu on the NES, which is where I know about this game, and while everyone hated it, I enjoy it. You have to clear the given amount of blocks within the time limit, you can climb up the ladder to throw the block at a different angle, you clear the block by matching the same block as yours, and you keep on playing until you reach the remaining blocks that are displayed on the screen, and that's how you beat the game. It's pretty addicting, and I always come back for more plotting. Plum Pop. Cruelty at its finest. You launch your animal at the alien and keep bouncing them. I don't know, man, I just find this concept to be either bizarre or just brutal. Like, why would you do that to your family? Seriously! Is this the deleted plot for the movie Ender's Game? Rainbow Island. Plot-wise, the sequel to original Bubble Bobble, but plays differently. You draw rainbow in order to climb to the top, while also using it to defeat enemy. As fun as it sounds, but being a part of the Bubble Bobble timeline, it plays second fiddle. Reston. A cool hack and slash game of what Conan the Barbarian should have been. You move to the right to progress while slashing a bunch of enemies that once you meet. Controls are as expected to be good, never filled with any bugs whatsoever. The music is good along with a nice background. However, the difficulty curve is unbalanced. The game could welcome the players with open hand, only for them to throw the players down the pit of suffering. Enemies will appear when you least expect and ends up draining half of your health, and you could fall down to your eventual abyss if you mess up your platforming. The game is fun, but the difficulty isn't. Return of the Invaders. A sequel to the original Space Invaders that somewhat improved the gameplay and the graphics. The invaders have different attack patterns along with new type of enemy to keep you busy, and that's about it. Apart from it, it's still Space Invaders with nothing much being changed. Space Gun is more of the same thing as Thunderbolt, but with a twist. The game utilizes a special pedal where you can move backward by stepping on it. You can't take down this alien? Quick, step on this pedal! This not only saves your life, but also giving you more chance to attack the enemy, which is very innovative. Blast through each alien infested sector and it is exhilarating. Space Invaders Part 2. It's Space Invaders, but with colors! Yay! Now you could identify which one of these idiots is the one that caused the most trouble. I am watching you, blue bastard. I hate you. Overall, still the same thing as the origin, and because I don't play this frequently. Super QIX, a sequel to the original QIX that was included in Taito Legends 2, and tad bit better. You still draw shapes to take over some area and avoid some of the enemies that can hurt you. It's mostly the same thing and there's not much to talk about. Not to mention, I'm not interested with this kind of games. Thunder Fox. You know the quote, "Don't bring a knife in a gunfight"? Well, that perfectly fits well here. You play as a wannabe Arnold Schwarzenegger as you plow through the enemy with your trustworthy knife. Not even a motherfucking tank can stop you. That just shows you how good the knife can be, and you will be using it throughout your game. If Strider is all about using sword, then Thunder Fox is about using knife. Don't f with the knife. The game is pretty fun from start to finish considering the game controls close to perfection. Some stages even switch from the run and gun to become a shmup. Sadly, we'll never get a sequel, which sucks. Tokyo, a quality shmup which lets you control smaller planes under your command. You can switch to 3 types of formation like air-to-air, /air-to-ground, ground-to-ground, and air-to-air. It makes you adapt to different situations by switching to specific formations, and I find it to be fascinating. On one hand, you are the captain leading the attack, while on the other hand, you are not fighting alone, which reminds me of Ace Combat 5. Overall, it's a shmup that makes you switch up the gameplay, and it never gets old. Taito-Ber. Hey, you know those games where you have to connect pipes together to let the water flow? Well, this is what it looks like. You connect the pipe on one end to another end to clear off that section. Honestly, it is somewhat complicated considering they keep dropping a new block and you have to work with them within the time limit, which makes things much worse on your end. Overall, the game as a whole really didn't capture me at all in terms of my attention. Woofy. Another variation of QIX, but this time they add new background to make it look better, along with some power-ups to make your life easier. Oh, and also this music that I'm sure you can use it for your hypnotize section during your medical mental therapy. I'm sure it will work. Well, 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 well. And finally, Zookeeper. You are a zookeeper, presumably. Trap the animals by making a brick wall. Like seriously, how are the animals gonna breathe? They are not gonna survive inside there. Holy f***, who thought of this terrible idea? Somebody free them! Anyway, the game is simple. Run around the level to make bricks to trap the animal from running out, and that's about it. I feel very bad for the animals nevertheless. I'm sure we are playing as a bad guy because this is inhuman. So that's all the games included in Taito Legends. Some are pretty good or some are pretty mediocre, but of course there's always room for improvement. Taito Legends 2 is a vast improvement compared to the predecessor, with lots of stuff being changed, including this menu screen here, which looks pretty good and it makes it feel like you are in the game. Also, I want to mention that the PS2 version includes some exclusive game that cannot be found on other versions. Anyway, I think enough blabbering, let's get into it. Alpine Ski. You control a guy as he traverses down the snowy mountain, avoiding all obstacles. You don't lose a life if you hit someone, but instead lose time, which reminds me of ZP Race. I don't know about you, but it feels very hard to avoid them, especially when you're going fast and the area of movement is kinda tight. Maybe you need to have fast reaction, but I just can't do it. It really reminds me of Slalom, which was released 4 years later, and understandably, this one is inferior. Arabian Magic. A really cool hack and slash game which takes place somewhere in the fictional world of Arabian continent. You pick one of the 4 characters and off you go, beating all kinds of enemies. They control pretty smooth and I don't have any trouble at all. The gameplay flows pretty well and keeps you immersed for as long as you could play. Oh yeah, you can pick up the teapot to unleash a genie. Not to make wishes of course, but to help you clear the enemy on screen, and once you beat each bosses, they will be the one to help you as well, which is very cool. Balloon Bomber. Space Invaders, but hard mode. You control this tank here and shoot at the target falling from the sky. What makes it harder is that the target swings around the balloon and aiming will be harder as well. They drop some bombs on the ground that will create a hole that makes it impossible to go through, and you guessed it. Eventually you will find yourself stuck in a corner and BAM! You die. A pretty okay game, but the game will screw you over very quickly. Bond's Adventure. If New Zealand's story is about heaven, then this is the opposite. You play as a monk that have to go through the underworld, aka hell. As far as I know, the other game which references Buddhism is Zero Ranger, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Yup, you guessed it, the game is religious. So someone out there, if you don't like it, well, it's here to stay, so deal with it. The character controls pretty smooth, and his primary weapon to defeat all enemies is the beats, which is based off real life item as well. The environment looks detailed and fits well with the theme of Underworld for each levels. A game with religious element that never overstays its welcome, along with fun gameplay that never shove it down your throat. Hey, why don't you try it? Camel Tree, or should I say, Camel Try to roll a ball? Haha. You control a ball by turning the maze as it navigates through tight section. The control is pretty good, but memorization is much more important. If you don't, you ain't getting through this hot shot. I guess this inspired Sega to make Super Monkey Ball, but I could be wrong. Check and Paw. If it wasn't for Bubble Bobble, I wouldn't even know this game is a precursor to that. Oh no, someone stole your hearts. Better go get it quickly. You play as this little boy and you have to free the heart, but it's not easy. A neat little addition is that you can drop the bomb at different directions, but because you yourself wouldn't able to climb up platform easily, most often you will find yourself trapped in a corner as things will get more hectic. But remember, it's either you or them that will survive. War crime does not make you feel guilty. Cleopatra Fortune. It's basically Tetris, but with a twist. You see this diamond here? Well, you have to wrap it around the blocks in order to clear it. It sounds complicated, but when you do it yourself, it's pretty clear and simple. Other than that, it's basically Tetris like I said. Crazy Balloon. The game is lying. There's nothing crazy at all, but instead, it makes you feel crazily anxious. You guide a balloon through a tight area to get to the end. Just by looking at it, you can already imagine my anxiety or meter is breaking the limit. Every section feels like you are about to get hit, and it makes it even worse as it will cause you to make a bunch of mistakes. If you have anxiety, don't play. Darius Gaiden. The Darius series keeps expanding, and just like what other people would say, this is the best in the series, and I can see why. Background are more detailed and the gameplay itself is improved. Let's not forget the awesome soundtracks, which makes me feel right in the mood. Sea creatures are back for revenge and you are taking the fight to them. Dawn Darko Dawn. It's another game with Bubble Bobble, each single screen style. You play as a lumberjack to hammer your enemy before throwing them towards the wall. Now it really feels like you're the bad guy. Dungeon Magic. A beat 'em up game with an isometric point of view, but not just that. The game lets you choose which path you want to take in your playthrough, which really increases the replayability as you could have different experiences like dealing with new enemies or finding new items, etc. If you like Arabian magic, you will love this as well. Elevator Action Returns. Taito wrote down all problems with the first game and vastly improved it in the sequel. And man, they nailed it. The game expands from the traditional gameplay towards something that encourages exploration with larger map, but not just that. The game also incorporates lots of action elements, so you could be shooting, causing explosion, ducking, running all over the place, while trying to survive, which really makes it feel like you're watching a 90s movie. It is such a fun experience, and this short review doesn't do the justice. Frontline. You play as a last surviving man fighting a squadron of enemies coming your way. It's an average run and gun shooter. Occasionally you can ride a tank, but not really that fun. I guess this game is like the remaining soldier, fighting against a bunch of odds. Darius. The first time ever Darius ventures into 3D era, and they took a lot of advantage with that. They were able to unleash the full potential of Darius' universe. Environment felt more alive with tons of atmosphere laying around on each layers of the stage. Of course, the bosses look more menacing with their 3D polygonal models, so you will have one heck of a battle. The new addition of the game is the ability to capture enemy to fight alongside, and if you wait at the right time, you could KO the boss rather quickly. But because everything is polygonal, it makes it harder to spot the enemy bullet that could blend in to the background and you won't see it coming until the last moment, and that's why I frequently go back to guide. Not a bad game, just my preferences. Gagirenden. The game is actually made from Toaplan. Here's a little history. Toaplan is a company that is mostly known for their arcade titles such as Truxton and Batsugen. But when the company went bankrupt in 1994, some of the staff hate to Taito to make games, including this one. So that's the short history of Toaplan. No need to thank me. Because of that, you can see some Toaplan elements being incorporated into this game. While the time traveling mechanic is fun, but there's also a problem with this game. The game feels empty. For most of the game, you will be just flying on the screen waiting for something to happen. The action, while it happens, is fun, but when there's nothing on the screen, the empty feeling kicks in. One of the best examples, the final boss who appeared in the first game just lingers around before teleports away. Could you do it quickly, please? Overall, the game as a whole works as what you would expect from a shmup, but I just want to highlight my problem. Greed Seeker. Another fun shmup on the disc where you could use 3 of the planes that are vary based on their stats. The unique thing about this game is that you can use your pod to absorb most enemy bullets, which builds up into a number of bombs that can be unleashed, especially on bosses, because those bastards never go down easily. You will need everything to survive because the game throws you back to the checkpoint whenever you use the continue, which means you will be seeing the same stages over and over again. Growl. A pretty unique beat 'em up where you beat up enemies to rescue animals. Now, this is not Tarzan, don't look here. Sometimes the enemy also appear to give you a hand, which is really cute. Most of the time, you will be facing a large amount of enemies at one single time, which makes the game even chaotic, and it will be even fun if you have second player, which I don't have, sorry. The gameplay is fun, accompanied by a good soundtrack, only to be ruined by the conclusion. I won't spoil what it is, but those who play it know what I mean. Gun Frontier. Humanity ran to the other planet and now are captured by aliens, so you flew a plane to save everyone. It's your typical shmup where you have to survive while getting through the enemy field. You collect items on the screen to power up your weapon and also to collect bombs, and if you die, you lose everything and gets kicked back to the previous checkpoint. The game really plays similar to Battle Garega, and maybe this game inspired Rising to make that one too. Hat Trick Hero. Like I said many times, motorsport and badminton are the only 2 sports that I care, which means other sport including football is a sport that I don't give a damn about. I never watched too many football matches, and frankly, I couldn't care less. So going into this game, I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about this. The graphics is pretty good, especially with the smooth scaling, and that's about all the credit I could give. In Sector X, another shmup with cute element, you play as an insect, if you can't tell by it, and shoots everything. It's pretty basic and doesn't really interest me at all. Kiki Kai Kai. All your friends are kidnapped by ghosts, and you have to save them. You control this girl here in a top-down perspective, run and gun style, where you have two weapons. One is your primary projectile, and second is this rod where you can use at any enemies nearby you. I don't have to explain this considering you already know about it in Pocky and Rocky, which is a better game than this one, but still, can't forget the origin. Kuri Kinton, another beat 'em up, and it's pretty fun. Controls are responsive to your input, thus you could feel the satisfaction of kicking the crap out of your enemies. Beat the enemies, progress to the next round, go deeper, fight the boss, and go as usual. And repeat the process. Liquid Kids. You play as this stink, where you throw a bunch of water balloons at your enemy which behave like the same as the weapon in Bond's Adventure. But here, you are able to freeze the enemy to kick them away. And just like Bond's Adventure, the game is presented as a platformer where you walk through each levels, defeat enemies and bosses. The game also supports branching system, which means you can play it over and over again. The whole game is pretty fun, and one could imagine if Bubble Bobble becomes a platformer as well. Lunar Rescue. I'm probably the only person on this planet that likes this, because everyone apparently hates it. You pilot a small ship that got deployed from a big ship, and you descend to the bottom of the planet to rescue the human. You got limited amount of fuel, and you have to avoid the asteroids on your way below. Once you get the human, you then can begin ascending, and this time, jeez, cunning bastard, they know how to hide. At this moment, you don't use fuels anymore, and you can shoot back at the enemy to get back on top. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy this game, and kinda addicted to this. Maybe because you need to have strategy, or because I'm weird. Majestic 12, The Space Invaders Part 4, a sequel to Return of the Invaders, and it's my favorite in the series, mainly because there are much more changes in the background instead of just color palette swap. The background look detailed along with different enemy attack style to switch up the gameplay. The game also includes multiple power-up to help you along the way. Overall, an improvement to the original, and I could see myself returning. Metal Black. Originally a sequel to Gun Frontier, this game evolved into something else. Aliens took over the planet, and now you are the only one that can stop them. It plays traditionally closer to Darius, but different. As you might notice here, which you definitely will by now, the screen is littered with a bunch of molecules, and collecting them is the only way to power up your default weapon, and also increasing the power of your bomb. The whole game is filled with sorrow atmosphere everywhere, and there's no other signs of hope, which makes it clear that this game ain't messing around. See, even the lizard agrees. Nastar. Holy fuck, they managed to butcher the sequel. Sprites are ugly, the animations are janky, and the controls are awful, as if the developer does not care at all. Don't play this. Pucci Kara. What happens when Arcanoid and Puzzle Bobble bang together? Well, you got this. You control a ball with pedal as you clear the screen full of blocks. You then can even clear the singular block to drop off the remaining blocks. Even if your ball hits the bottom, the game still continues, albeit with more blocks rushing down on you. Overall, both ideas are meshed together and it works well. Puzzle Bubble, also known as Bust a Move Again for my version. Have you ever imagined what Puzzle Bubble would look like without fun? Well, here we go. No cute dragon, no entertaining music, and bland background. This game could be sold on the mobile market, and a casual player will give it 5-star rating. QIX. You are a small electric current and you draw lines around the map to form ships in order to take over the area, and that's how you progress through the game. It's an okay game, but I lost interest quickly. Mice. I guess this is Taito answer to Pac-Man, but here, the game is slightly more open. You collect all dots on the map to open the door to the next level while avoiding enemies. There's also power-up scattered everywhere for you to pick up. It's a fun little game, but what bugs me is that the Japanese version contains different features that were never brought over to the international version, mainly a story mode. Man, we really missed out on so many things here. Storm. I talked about this previously, so I'm not gonna talk too much of it. It's the shmup where not only you have to focus what's ahead, but also what's below you by using the lock-on technology to lock on multiple targets all together, which adds more gameplay value to the game itself. Highly detailed graphics, awesome pieces of soundtrack, along with innovative gameplay, the best shmup made by Taito. Space Invader 95. Basically Space Invaders but much more cuter. There's this genre called cute 'em up, where the game adds a lot of cute element that it becomes a parody of its original source material. But honestly, I just couldn't get into this stuff. Maybe because I'm too old, or because I played too much of the original game that when I look at this, I just cringe. Don't get me wrong, the game is fun, but I myself just don't quite enjoy it. Space Invader DX. You know what's better than one Invaders? 3 games! You got your classic with the choices of different boards, you got a versus mode to play with your friend, if you have any anyway, and also a parody version. And that's it. Yay. You might as well play Majestic 12 because you ain't missing anything here. Surveillant. Sylvester Stallone, Surveillant. You control a mecha dragon and plows through the enemy base while avoiding obstacles. You have a fire-breathing weapon to use, but you also have to use it strategically, as it needs to be recharged. It feels awesome being a badass dragon that can tear through everything that cannot be stopped. But unfortunately, your large-sized body will be a big hindrance as you could get hit by most things, and it could be tedious dying over and over again. The Fairyland Story came out a year before Bubble Bobble, and you could say this is the prototype to the aforementioned game. You play as a witch and you turn those enemies to stomp on them. You turn them into cake. And honestly, I wouldn't even eat them. The controls feel a little sluggish, and the music is also uninspiring, making the whole experience pretty bland. Some elements here got carried over to Bubble Bobble, which is a good thing considering this isn't a good game. The Legend of Kage. Most people already knew this, so I'm gonna keep it briefly. The princess has been kidnapped and you have to rescue her. You can jump pretty high to be able to explore new areas while avoiding some of the enemies. You also have weapons in your disposal, such as shuriken and sword, which will come in handy on multiple occasions. The whole experience is basically that, and I don't have much to say. Wildlands Fight, a one-on-one fighting game where you pick one out of 4 characters to fight each other. You got all your basic controls for fighting, and you also can walk around the ring to get a better shot at your rival. But the game as a whole doesn't really interest me that much. It's a forgettable title. And finally, Wild Western. You play as a cowboy and try to stop the bandits from stealing the train. You can shoot and climb up to the train to fight the bandit. On paper, it sounds fun, but the execution is mediocre. It controls a little sluggish, where it feels like you can't move as quickly as possible to avoid enemy bullets. Not to mention, when you do take out the enemy, their horses start to go after you. Like, what the hell? Why are you doing this? Come on! And because of that, so those are the 68 games reviewed in the Taito Legends collection. You know what? Let's throw in one more game. There we go, 69 games, nice amount collection, and I'm proud of what I just did. So yeah, that is it for the review on the both Taito Legends game. Each version contains some valuable games along with some mediocre stuff, but don't let that stop you from going after this game. This collection contains some games that you probably never expect to be ported to consoles. And unfortunately, this will be the only time we will see a collection like this by Taito. Because as we know it, in 2005, Square Enix announced they will be buying Taito, and in 2006, Taito was completely owned by Square Enix. Unlike Hudson, who was bought by Konami, Taito wasn't completely dissolved. They were able to continue to do their stuff until this very day. So take that, Konami! And unless you spend your money on Taito E-Grade 2 Mini, well, this is the better alternative. And also the fact that you won't see this version being re-released ever again. Looking at you, Taito milestones. For the past 4 weeks, I had some fun talking about my favorite Taito games that someone else normally never talk about when they talk about Taito. Each of them, in my opinion, are some of the best Taito projects ever made, and I highly recommend you to check it out. Who knows, maybe next year I will return again for another month of Taito-Ber. But until that day comes, just enjoy what we had here. If you enjoy what you see, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss a thing. Comment below your opinion on these games. Have you played them? Let's have a peaceful discussion. And if you want to follow me while I'm doing, follow me on Twitter, cause I'm mostly active there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.